Okay, as I was saying, he was called Manson because his mother married a guy at an AA meeting, and his last name was Manson. So I guess he had a stepfather for like 3 years, and he took on his last name, so he wasn't Maddox anymore. He had, of course, a shitty childhood. His mom was very, very prone to running off with men and leaving him with whatever relative would take him in the last second. And she once was at a bar, and somebody offered to take him for a beer, like buy her son for a beer, and she was like, fine, okay. So she gave him up for that. And her brother, at some point, his uncle, had to go hunt that lady down and get the baby back, because like, who does that? But he definitely got had he must have had some kind of defiancy disorder that led to conduct disorder at some point. I don't know if he had intermittent explosive disorder, or he probably had, who knows what he had as a kid. He always had terrible self-control. He did have psychosis. He was diagnosed as being schizophrenic with paranoid delusions and having antisocial personality, which usually means you're a psychopath or a malignant narcissist, in the DSM-15. Or what am I saying? DSM-5. Sorry, I'm tired. He, like I said, he was very good at recruiting, especially at the political period and all the chaos going on socially. And because he was, in the middle of Haight-Ashbury, where, thousands and thousands of young adults were fleeing to be part of the counterculture and to drugs and have sex and, follow their dreams. Or he had his own dreams. He actually wanted to be a musician, and I think the Beach Boys actually produced, or at least based, a song on one of his songs. He did not do well with his frustrated desire to be a musician. Doris Day, who is like an actress, her son, I guess, was a popular musician, successful, and he rejected Manson for, like wanting to get his song produced, and that started Manson on this obsessive loop of wanting to go after famous people. He decided that anybody who was Hollywood, or what he deemed Hollywood, or movie people is what he would call it, that they deserved to die, and that he wanted to take his revenge out on them. Which is why when the Manson murders occurred, one of the targets was Sharon Tate, who was Roman Polanski's wife, who was 8.5 months pregnant, and a very noted, popular, blonde, tall, thin actress in Hollywood with a long career. Unfortunately, she was at a beach house with, I believe, her hairdresser, a longtime friend, and several other people who were there. Just a random group of people. Manson basically told his cohorts, like all the people in his cult, that he had what they call a family cult, which is a small group of people who form this obsessive following of one person, a guru or somebody who they believe is their spiritual leader and master, which was him. And he had, like I said, he was severely mentally ill. He constantly had epiphanies, especially to music, especially the Beatles. And he really felt like the Beatles were talking to him through their music, which is why Helter Skelter, which was, I believe, a song lyric that Paul McCartney sang that had absolutely nothing to do with what he made the connotation of it being, like a violence and rebelling against authority. It had nothing to do with that whatsoever. It was like a British childhood rhyme or something. It was nonsensical. It did not have the connotation. Like, he didn't even have the intelligence to look it up and figure out what it really meant, you know? And he also had them in her blood and some of the other people's blood, like right on the walls, you know, death to pigs, which of course they called the police pigs back then. That was like the derogatory term for them. So he was basically against any government, any authority, like, of course, the police, anybody who was trying to, the establishment. He also had been raped a lot when he was younger in boys' detention homes, and he had developed, I think, an almost maniacal obsession with race relations, and he believed that Martin Luther King was assassinated and Malcolm X and all that. He believed it was part of some vast American plan unfolding that was part of his Armageddon type prophecy, that America would have some, you know, giant, almost civil war again, and it would be like a race, you know, black and white people just killing each other and have this huge war. And he would indoctrinate some of his, you know, groupies into this thinking. He was just a lunatic, honestly. He just, it's weird. It's like he was exactly at the right place at the right time to become what he was, which was, of course, the wrong thing for everybody else. But it's like he could have just been a random mentally ill guy who, like, kept to himself, you know, and was just talking to himself all the time and nobody paid him any attention. But that's because it was right, like I said, at the cusp of the free love, you know, explosion. And he happened to be in this particular part of America where there was heavy access to young people who were disillusioned, passionate, altruistic. They wanted to change the world, you know, follow their dreams. Like, he just happened to be right at the pinnacle of, he was no, like, mastermind. He was like a horrible criminal. His plan sucked, but it all worked because of his ability to be like chameleon. Like, he was very much, he would mirror and mimic what people wanted him to be for them. And he would switch it around based on who he was talking to at that moment or who he was romancing at that time. Like, he was very good at, I guess, reading people's body language and figuring out what made them tick. Like, what he was very good at narrowing in on. He was a master manipulator. He was very good at pinpointing exactly what their deepest insecurity was and what their greatest wish was. And he would just nail it with each person. And he had a way about him, like, I've done a lot of research on this, I'm not just making this up. But this is also, like, extremely common in cult followings with the leaders, that they emulate this sort of persona that becomes overwhelmingly mythical, and it just hits the right buttons in people that lights them up and makes them want to just follow him and let him, change whatever their, you know, ideology was. They'll just take on whatever he wants them to. And it's beyond brainwashing. It's cohesive control for sure. But he wasn't, like I said, he was not, to me, he doesn't seem to be your typical type of cult leader. Usually they're a lot more highly educated than him and are able to manipulate spiritual principles, especially from like Eastern religion. That's always a big thing. Or like Jim Jones, who I'm going to talk about, who had 1,000, I think it was not 1,000, 903 people, I think, murdered themselves all at the same time by drinking poison Kool-Aid, and the babies, they would even squirt the poison in their babies' mouths to kill them first. I mean, this guy he was different, but he's more what I would consider the typical cult leader. He would take everything he learned growing up in a sort of a Pentecostal environment, very conservative, but very traditionally fanatical Christian theology. And he learned, and he would also like go to black church and stuff and see how, they did it too. But he would pick up what drew people in the most. Again, it's this unbelievable ability to, almost without words, sometimes without even education, be able to hone in on what people are looking for and to copycat them, mirror them, like act in a way that is an answer to their deepest prayer, right? He's able to convince them that he is who they've been looking for, like his group, like his mission is the missing thing in their life. And by joining him and doing what he says, that they are going to fill up that void or the empty place, or like whatever's gone wrong in their lives, it's gonna be all worth it, because they've now found their purpose in life. He really pushed on, almost like this, I'm a social worker, so I can say this. He really pushed on social justice. Anybody who had a bleeding heart or wanted to help others, he really entrenched himself in showing off as being somebody in the community who others would look up to. Like, he really got in judges' pockets. He really pushed an agenda of, like, he adopted children of other races. He had sort of this blended family that he created, and he did it all out of the, supposedly the kindness of his heart and his, desire to like be this do-gooder type mentor. All a ruse, of course, because what all these guys always have in common across the board, it's the same thing. It's always about control. It's always about, they all use the same, almost verbatim. It's very like, almost like malignant narcissism 101. I mean, like, isolate them, cater to their fantasies about what they want or what they're looking for, and then start to break them down, get them attached to you, just doing love bombing, withdrawal, and he would do this almost with groups of people. He had a huge following. And Jim Jones was amazing at raising money. He was able to get people to bring money back into the cult. Just unbelievable amounts of income, which is why he was able to afford to take almost 1,000 people from his, following from the Midwest all the way to, I'm going to say it wrong, Ganya, is that right? To Jonestown, to this part of the world where they would be completely cut off from any. Well, actually, he was escaping. He was actually at that point had started to get found out by law enforcement and people in the community that he was not doing with their money what they thought. And he started to, he was like repulsively sexually involved with his members in like a sick way. And of course it was for spiritual reasons. Of course. And right? And he was gonna get in trouble for that. Like, he was really getting in trouble finally. And so that's when he came up with this whole, let's all go on a, out of the country experience. We all need to huddle together and isolate and not be around, the outside world. And that's where he came up with this whole plan. And then when he got there, he kind of just started to unravel. I guess he was unraveling mentally for years, but he had been saying that he wanted to have a mass suicide. That was part of his apocalyptic plan. But I don't know if people really believed him or what. But it's like, by the time he got them all in this isolated compound, he was really able to double down and be like, no, that's what's happening, And I think the reason I kind of wanted to give some of these talks is to talk about kind of the psychology behind it, because it is very hard to understand. How could anybody... Well, I think it's easy to answer the question, how can anybody join a cult? Because they don't think they're joining a cult. Nobody sits there and says, yeah, this is our cult, this is our name, like, nobody says that. Everybody thinks they're joining some special group that is for spiritual enlightenment or self-improvement or some kind of community effort. Or, for like hedonistic reasons, a sex cult or, drug cult. Cults can be anything. They can be political, they can be financial. Like, you can have a cult based on anything. It's just a group of people. A sect has a different definition. Sects are more, SECT, are more related to a common theme that you're all focused on. Whereas when you have a cult, it really is, you are worshiping they have a Jesus Christ of the disciples, basically. There is one figure or a married figure or whatever, a figurehead of people that everybody's worshiping. Everybody has decided that this leader is basically they're usually a messiah. They're usually considered a prophet. They always say that that's what they are. They usually have tons of mental illness and they're experimenting with drugs, alcohol, or whatever. And they're constantly recruiting people to basically feed their egos and make them feel better about themselves personally. It's like they have a harem, and it's like that's what these people are there to sort of bolster them up. And the more they get this sort of rush and adrenaline from these people idolizing them, lots of people, men and women, children, everybody, communities, groups in the area, like they have the attention of many, and their personal mission is to not to grow that, never to decrease it, because then they'll go into some sort of breakdown, and like they're living on the opinions and basically false, fake love of others. If you call it love, I don't know what it is, but they're using that as like almost like a fuel to keep them going as the actual leader. It propels them forward on their whatever their mission is, and it reinforces what it's really weird. It's like they're saying, I'm almost like Jesus, like I'm the way, the truth, the light. But it's almost like when everybody agrees with them and sort of also reinstates, and with their bodies, their money, their time, their attention, their devotion to give up everything in their lives for this person and follow them wherever and do all kinds of, like, everybody's a workhorse. Basically, they pick people who basically are going to do the work for them. I mean, no cult leaders sitting around doing accounting. He has his members. He recruits people he knows that he can use on a maximum level. He wants them doing the work, promoting it, and then he wants to be using them sexually, emotionally, all that stuff. It's like, but it's like from their idolization of him, that sort of gives him the energy to then keep preaching harder and like going further into the rabbit hole of who he is proposing he is. So it really is like this weird energy loop, and there's like a whole structure of steps that how to reprogram somebody, how to, and that's why when family members of these people, or anybody from their prior life, especially parents, would try to, or spouses or whatever, children, adult children, would try to come take them back to the real world, it's like they would be so unsuccessful. They had all these deprogramming programs, which were essentially, and this was a lot in the 60s and 70s. I don't know about the 80s, but it was, I think it died out by then, but it was like there were all these step-by-step, almost like a military type, CIA type mental model of how you could rehabilitate somebody who had been coerced. And because you can't convince, it's very, very, very much like somebody trying to, like a family having an intervention for a drug addict. And of course the person is physically, mentally, they're completely consumed. They've also poured everything into their drug addiction and they've lost everything else. So it's like they don't really have anything to go back to at that point. So it's like that's even more reason for them to, get high and forget about it, like, and now these people, the families in the way, trying to tell them things about really their old self, that they're not even that person at that moment at all. They can't even like step into that because they're so far gone. It's very much like that. So it's like these family members would come and try, if they could track them down, try to get them out of the cult. But it's like, they're not, they can maybe get them physically for a period of time, their undivided attention, but it's like they don't have the skill set they're not like a hostage negotiator is really what you need to to re to like bring down all that manipulation and months and years of complete it's like their identity was reformed. So it's like they're trying to talk to the old identity, but it's like you can't get to it because there's this wall of the new identity. And only with certain tactics they would take them to like these deprogramming places where they thought, well, they could get them back more to themselves, and then maybe they'd be reasonable, because you can't force somebody if they're an adult and they haven't done any quote unquote crimes, which most of these cults, they don't call them cults when they're trying to get money for them. They're not using the name of each cult of their actual group. They always have different names. It's almost like they have a whole setup. So it's like, you think you're giving money or donating to this particular cause, it's under a different name. It's not called Children of God, it's called something else. And it's like somehow that all trickles back. But it's an elaborate system. And it's the funniest part, the part I find the most bizarre, is that these are all supposed to be these radical, alternative, against the system. You don't want to be in the rat race. You don't want to be in the traditional marriage and just, as a woman or whatever, just giving yourself up to just being a housekeeper. They try to tell you you're going to be like this creative, spiritual, being who is so enlightened and free, but it's like the way they're going to get you to be that, because their doctrine is based on like it's like building a sandcastle, right at tide. It's going to come down. Like, they can't keep up the facade long enough. So, like, they know it's faulty. So what's weird is that in order to make them think that they're like this free individual with all these, pleasure seeking, all these things that they, traveling and all these things that make them so free, but the way they get them to believe that is on these very like set, almost like a military bureaucratic office rules of, it's not rocket science. They're not that, none of these concepts are really shocking. They're all the same thing that a manipulator would do, like in a domestic violence relationship. It's the same tactics. It's the gaslighting. It's the making them have lack of sleep, keeping them from other people, isolating. There's all this, withholding affection and giving, there's all this weird stuff, but it's like, it's all done systematically, just like an office, almost like following a protocol. So the irony of it is they're actually more locked into a system of control that is draining their soul energy and their vital life, or like they're worse than being at a 9-to-5 job and in like some dead-end marriage. And like, they are a cog in a much worse machinery, because at least there's other things they may be boring and they may be repetitive and useless, but it's like, they are real things, but what they're doing to them it's a double entendre. It's a false front. It's, a dual living. They're promoting something that they're not giving you. They're giving you the illusion of something. They're selling you a fake bridge. You're not going to get what they're saying you're going to get at all. Like, in fact, that's the entire point. It would do nothing helpful to the leader if you actually became this autonomous spiritual being, because first of all, they want to be the Messiah. So like, they don't want everybody enlightened. That's like, goes against what they want. Enlightened is basically like, do whatever they want because they're the spiritual authority. So it's like, they're the vessel through which you think this is going to happen. And then the sad part, especially with some of these researchers who were actually locked into cults themselves. This one lady did a ton of research. She was in a cult for like 10 years. Is a lot of time, I wouldn't say a lot of time, I would say sometimes there'll be a crack in the veneer and they'll see inconsistencies either with the people, they always have them grouped together, and they do weird things, like they tell you who you can marry, who you can't, like they break down everything, or who you can have sex with, who you can't, like who can raise their own children and who can't, the sect will raise them, they have all this constant like control tactics. But at some point, some of these people, like, these are not dumb people. Like, everybody thinks that somebody joins a cult, they must be really stupid, or they're not. They're just been taken advantage of by master manipulators, and they have picked out, their weaknesses and, like, just gone to town on it. You know what I mean? Like, and what happens is some of these people are so intelligent underneath all this false front that they're believing in, that they will figure it out over time when they'll have some inconsistencies will show up and stuff they can't turn away from. And especially because they usually put them in charge of other recruits who are just starting. So there's always this weird look back in time where it's like they almost see themselves like in this new person that they're bringing into the fold. And it reminds them of when they were in that position. And sometimes they'll get very jealous of the attention, the affection, and, maybe even, the possessiveness of the leader towards the new person, because it reminds them of when they were new and they were considered the desired object, but by now they're not, so it's like, it's almost like they see it with fresh eyes, what happened to them, and they're like looking back at it and being like, wait a minute, like, why am I not, like, what happened? It's like, but it's like when they're just being in their regular other jobs for the cult, it's like they don't see it as clearly, It's not in their face, shall we say. Anyway, maybe go over a few of these things they're talking about, these principles, and then I'll probably end this video and do the Children of God and continue with Joaquin Phoenix and River on a different one. Okay. Her theory is called bounded choice, which is a theory that explains how intelligent, capable people can make decisions that seem irrational from the outside. Their choices become increasingly constrained by the group's ideology, social relationships, and control systems until leaving feels impossible. Cults often regulate members' behavior, thoughts, letters, emotions, access to information through guilt, fear, isolation, social pressure, and sometimes physical force. A cult can be a religious, political, therapeutic, business-oriented, or even centered on self-help. What matters and what makes it a cult is its coercive influence and authoritarian format. So it's like, it's almost like a dictatorship, like this person. There's no like, they'll have all these like group times, or like group meetings, or they'll make it look like you are part of a family, you are part of a group, but it couldn't be further from the truth, because you have no privacy, and you can't really you're with the group members they want you to be with, and they'll manipulate it if you get close to somebody who might tell you otherwise, something bad, about the group. That person mysteriously ends up having to go to a different branch of their sect, somewhere else far away. So it's like you're separated from them, but it seems random, but it's not random. Like nothing in cults is random. The crazy thing about cults is they're able to get... This is what's crazy about cults. The leaders are able, and whoever is on the higher rung of that, they're able to get other people to do their dirty work. Literally, that's what they do. So it's kind of shockingly amazing with how they're able to do this. But like, Charlie Manson didn't kill those people like the movie people. I think it was 7 to 9 people were murdered, including an 8.5-month pregnant actress, Sharon Tate. Obviously her baby was killed too. And he didn't even lift a finger. He just gave them the order to go murder these people in a heinous... He said, make it as heinous and violent as possible. And they just went and did it. It's like, imagine having that kind of control over another human being, or multiple human beings. Like, you can get them to actually get their hands dirty, so if they get caught, the police will take them away, not you, because you're not actually doing the crime. It's actually, I think it's just to reinforce their power. It's like a power move, because not only are they getting what they want, which is the notoriety for the heinous violent crime, but it's like they also are getting the ego boost that they're that powerful, that they truly are a messiah. They truly are, like a figure of God's work, that they're able to, they feel validated by what they're able to get other people to do. The more they can get people to do crazy, unbelievable things, that's the more proof that they really are these leaders. They really are these spiritual masters. It's very Apocalypse Now, which is all about Amazon and a soldier who goes crazy, and he goes into the jungle, and he basically gets all the natives to all worship him, and he becomes their god, and they don't even worship their own, what they considered their gods, like they worship him instead. They put all that stuff away. It's like he's able to take over massive amounts of people from another culture speaking another language. That's how, like, charismatic. And I mean, these people, I wouldn't say Manson. I don't think he's particularly highly intelligent, but many of these people are freaking brilliant in their own right, but they're so sick. I mean, they're so full of sadism and sexual depravity. I mean, violent tendency. I mean, they hairline fracture temper, basically in all of them. It's amazing they're able to pull off any of this, to be honest with you. And I almost think it's very much, again, it's just like a drug or alcoholic type person in a family system, right? The whole family, like, let's say I've been through this, so I would know, like, the wife's super codependent, you know, they're trying to hide it from everybody else in their lives. The children know the truth, but they're hushed or scapegoated, or, you know, told to just go to the room and not talk about it or whatever. So it's like everybody basically revolves around this one person and whatever their mood is and whether they got their drug or drink that day, or, you know, everybody's walking on eggshells, you know, like their whole lives are like on hold around this one figure. It's exactly like that. It's like just on a group form. So it's like everyone's tied in emotionally, physically, you know, spiritually to this one human being, right? And it's like, it's just insane. What else? I guess, yeah, I should probably just end this. I'll talk about Patty Hearst in the next one because I'm already at time. But let's see if there's any other. So her theory goes beyond brainwashing, and it's called bounded choice, which is her best known theory explaining why highly intelligent, educated people would become so subservient. And a lot of times the cult leaders will be having contests, like, to see who they can break first or fast, or, you know, like, I mean, the more sort of individualistic or stubborn or I guess mouthy, if you want to say that, you know, somebody who stands up for themselves, like the person that's hardest to crack is, of course, the one they'll all see who can get them first. And then if they accomplish that, it's like, that's their great achievement. And that just reinforces how great they are. It's a bizarre, it's very narcissistic. It's very like, the leaders are filled with insecurities and low self-esteem and low self-worth, and mostly always have a huge abuse history, many times with a father figure, or many times with a neglectful mother and a extremely controlling, disciplinarian, often violent father. Like, that's a pretty typical path. And then they take that as an excuse to do whatever they want to other people, you know. And then they try to build the family they never had. Only they have to be in, like, so then, like, on one hand, they're so insecure and have such low self-worth, but on the other hand, they're like completely self-centered, completely, you know, worship on the altar of themselves. You know, they have like a grandiose narcissist. They have a grandiose picture of who they really are. So it's like they're holding these two principles. They're double-minded. They're doing this simultaneously. So I think sometimes that's where a lot of the cracks in the persona come from, because it's like, how can these two things be true at once? But there's no solid base for any of it. Like, they're not, the firm foundation that they're getting all this power from is the pyramid of the people they're oppressing, right? So like, that's their power source. That's where they get the moxie to believe this craziness that they've made up about themselves. It's just really, I mean, on some level, like, if you look up personality disorders, you really study them, I mean, or any kind of, especially antisocial personality or sociopaths, psychopaths, malignant narcissists. Like, it's all pretty textbook, you know? It's like, it's the same pattern through and through. It's just done in different ways over and over and over again. Different indulgences and different predilections. And honestly, a lot of it can all be traced back to biblical stories too, because there are these type of figures like King Ahab, Jezebel, and Nebuchadnezzar. Who's the one who King David, she's married to somebody named Nabal, Nabel, I think, and he's just like this. And like, there are a lot of those kind of characters where, what I'm trying to say is, this is a certain archetype. This is a certain thing that has replicated in history for millennia. As long as there was human beings being born, this prototype of a person has been in existence. But society never seems to get their shit together enough to figure out how to catch this earlier. Though I don't think with a psychopath there is any, you can't make someone have empathy if their brain does not produce chemicals or endorphins for that to even exist. I don't know. I would imagine, like, we're all going towards this robot future. Maybe there'll be some empathy chip they can come up with. I don't know, but it's like, society is likes to take the lazy blind eye to it, and like, nobody can come up with solutions. So everybody's just like, okay, we'll just, put a band-aid on it. And it's like, it's just a total, it's what it is just not acknowledging how much damage and just complete annihilation that you let this, prototype just do whatever it wants. It's like a dinosaur, a T-Rex, something, carnivorous. It's like a great white shark. Like, it is literally going to, like, take everybody with it. And it's like, I don't know, like, it's like, I think now people are maybe taking it more seriously, but it's like, the solutions aren't really there. And the solutions there are more based on the people that they are drawn to, like, correcting them instead, so they don't feed into this. It's just like, but it's like the worst. They just don't have to do much, I don't know. The whole thing's crazy. But it is true that if you did, there has to be something missing or wired in a way. Like, I know these people were taken advantage of. I'm not saying they're not victims. It's just, there's definitely something in them that is desiring and latching on to this authority figure for some there's some lack, there's something that they're seeking, you know? So it's like, it does make some sense to like get to the bottom of that. I agree with that. Because nobody knows what to do about somebody who's deeply depraved. You know, it's like, how do you rehab that? How do you, like, everybody's got a bunch of theories, nobody's got anything that really works. So it just keeps repeating. And like, unfortunately, like the legal system is, I mean, these people, it's just about power and money. And honestly, a lot about sexual dominance. But a lot of times, people in power will have these hidden appetites themselves that they're leading double lives, and they're not, nobody knows that they're really part of, you know, that they're actually going to these, they're participating. And so like Peter Paul, what is that? Paul pays Mary, or, you know what I mean? Like one hand feeds the other. It's like, if they didn't have the justice system in their pocket, or like political clout, or, you know, if they didn't have some kind of status, if these leaders didn't have people in high places who are actually interested in some of these poor behaviors, or highly invested in looking the other way for whatever reason, it's like they wouldn't be able to get away with it. But it's like they have collaborators, hidden or non-hidden, and that's why they're able to do so much to such a vast amount of people. And there is something intrinsic in human beings where I think they want to believe, they want to not face reality if it's really bad. You know, like they would prefer a dressed up, you know, softer version of reality. And like, if someone is willing to hand that to you on a silver platter, it's like people unfortunately are drawn to taking it, which is very like Adam, Eve, the snake. You know, the snake didn't have to do much with Eve, just had to convince her that God was not letting her have something that was rightfully hers. You know, like, you just have to convince someone that they actually have more power than they think they have, and then show them, you know, kind of like the open door to like where they could go claim whatever that is that they feel like they've been slighted in. And then it's like it opens the door of curiosity and experimentation. And it's like people would rather, everybody wants to think they have an out or a chance, or there's hope, or there's something, there's another door. Like, everybody wants this idea that they're not screwed forever in every way. Like, they just don't want to hear that. Maybe it would be best if everybody just learned how to face their own lives better, including myself. I mean, it's a hard pill to swallow. I mean, I've 8 years into this disability. I just almost broke down and cried at Barnes & Noble yesterday in the biography section by myself, because I can't deal with my disability. I mean, it's been 8 years. I'm still crying in bookstores. It's like, when is it ever gonna end? It's like, when I'm dead, I guess. But it's like, I get it, you know, like, facing reality sucks bad. I mean, like, I don't want to face it either. Like, I obviously haven't. Okay, I gotta start this video. This is getting stupid. Okay.